These 7 mistakes can wreak havoc on your piano journey, keeping you stuck on a frustrating plateau, making you sound like an amateur, or even causing injuries. I'm going to share my personal experience with that. As someone who's taught hundreds of students and connected with thousands more through this channel, I see these same mistakes over and over again. But here's the good news. You don't have to make them. If you want to make faster progress and actually enjoy the process, this video is for you. And if you're teaching yourself piano through YouTube videos, stick around, this is especially for you. Let's jump in. The first mistake I see all the time is rushing. Now, this is a trap that almost everyone falls into, and I spend every day preaching it to my students, but I often fail to take this advice myself. So often people are trying to master a tricky piano part, attempting it over and over. They keep tripping up and they start to get frustrated. Now, the key is to slow down. Try it painfully slow, comically slow, so slow that it almost stops sounding like music. Another way I like to put this is slow it down to thinking speed, where you can think about every next note before you play it. So slow that it's impossible to make a mistake. This approach might sound obvious, but people always underestimate its power. On some level, your brain doesn't pay attention to the speed. It starts clicking into place as long as it feels you play the notes in the right order. You've got to give your brain that win by doing it slowly. Once you get it right slow, you take it a hair faster, then another hair, then another. And if you start making mistakes, you've sped it up too much too soon. As you inch towards your target speed, your muscle memory starts to kick in. And the counterintuitive truth is, you'll get where you want to be, playing it fast and smooth, sooner if you take this slow and patient approach. The second mistake I see self-taught players making is not using the sustain pedal or not using it properly. The sustain pedal is such a game changer, but I get why some people avoid it. It's a whole extra limb to think about, and getting the timing right can be frustrating. Now, if you're just starting out and trying to get your fingers to cooperate, it makes sense to leave the pedal out for a bit. One thing at a time, right? But here's the thing, I've seen people who've been playing for years and still avoid the pedal entirely. And I don't think they realize just how much it could transform their playing. The pedal makes a massive difference. If you're not pedaling, you're going to sound like an amateur no matter how good the rest of your playing gets. It's just gonna sound clunky. If you are not using the sustain pedal yet, commit to starting. It's time. Now, I also see people using the pedal but incorrectly, which can mess things up just as much. I have a whole video going into detail on this, but real quick, let me just refresh the broad strokes. The pedal transforms this to this by letting everything beautifully ring out even after you've released a note. The tricky part is if you hold down the pedal for too long, like when you're switching chords, it can start to get muddy with all those clashing notes ringing out together. But here's the mistake most people make. They lift the pedal as they're switching chords, like that, which leaves a stark gap in the sound. Instead, you want to lift just as you land on the new chord. Lift. The goal is to use the pedal to smooth over the transition and then clear the slate once you're playing the new chord. Imagine landing on the new chord is what triggers the foot to lift, like this. I'll demonstrate on a C and an E minor. Lift. Lift. You can even wait to lift until right after you've hit the chord. Lift. Just to get the hang of waiting while your hand moves to the new chord and then lifting. It's a bit like patting your head and rubbing your belly at first. It feels awkward, but if you stick with it, it will click, it will become automatic, and you and anyone listening to you will be so glad you took the time to master it. The third common mistake is inefficient practice, one of the biggest progress killers I see. Here's how it usually plays out. When you're working on a song, you get to the point where you mostly sound pretty good, except for a few tricky spots where you keep messing up. Now, most people end up spending their practice time playing through everything they've learned so far, start to finish. They breeze through the easy parts, stumble on the hard parts, and then either push through or get frustrated and start over. No. This means you're spending 90% of your practice time on stuff you really don't need to practice. Instead, you've got to zoom in on the challenge. Focus specifically on that problem area. Often it's just a small section holding the whole song back. maybe a tricky chord change, a rhythm that throws you off, or an awkward transition. So zero in on that tough spot and give it the time it deserves. Loop that clunky chord change back and forth, or drill those two challenging measures until the muscle memory kicks in. A great approach is to break up your practice sessions into 3 steps. Start with a playthrough. Notice where you stumble or slow down. Next, zoom in on the tricky parts. Spend the bulk of your session focusing on those specific areas. Slow them down. Remember my first tip. Break them apart, and then build them back up. Finally, finish with a full playthrough. This pulls everything together and lets you hear how much progress you've made. If you hold yourself to this practice routine, you'll be amazed at how much faster you master songs. Real quick, if you are enjoying this video, please subscribe and click the bell. It really helps out the channels and allows me to keep making these videos for you. The 4th mistake I see self-taught players make is thinking piano is like pushing buttons. If I just hit the right notes in the right order, it'll sound great. Not exactly. This is one issue that YouTube has made much worse. Those falling MIDI block tutorial videos can be a good resource, but they leave a lot out. Fingering matters. Technique matters. Dynamics matter. These things make your playing sound musical and beautiful instead of clunky. Let's start with fingering. Using the right finger numbers makes your playing smoother and more efficient. Bad fingering can leave your hands stranded, awkwardly struggling to hit the next notes. Beginners often have poor instincts for this, me included when I started, but over time, learning pieces with proper fingering and practicing scales builds those instincts naturally. So treat fingering as just as important as the notes themselves. If you're a beginner and your tutorial or sheet music doesn't include fingering guidance, find one that does. It's worth it. Then there's dynamics. The piano's magic lies in its ability to play soft, loud, and everything in between. If you ignore dynamics, your playing will sound flat and lifeless. Focusing on how you play, not just what you play, makes all the difference. Try recording yourself and listen back. That can help with noticing this. Or just really listening while you're playing, which is surprisingly easy to forget to do. And if your keyboard isn't touch sensitive, consider upgrading. There are budget-friendly options with this crucial feature. Piano playing isn't just about pressing the right keys, it's about creating music. Musicality is what transforms notes into something expressive and alive. Focus on proper fingering, technique, and dynamics, and you'll unlock the full potential of your playing. The 5th mistake beginner piano players make is not having a clear direction. I want to learn piano sounds like a good goal, but it's not specific enough to guide you. What does that even mean? Do you want to play classical music? Sing along to pop and rock songs? Jam out to jazz? Each of these paths is legit, but they're very different. If classical is your goal, you'll likely want to study sheet music, sight reading, and possibly take private lessons to meet those specific goals. But if you want to play rock and roll while you sing, you're on a totally different path, and that should focus on chords and rhythms. Here's where a lot of people go wrong. They dive into random YouTube videos without thinking about their specific goals. If you're watching tutorials on memorizing treble clef notes but want to play rock piano, you're wasting time. It's like wanting to bake a cake but watching videos on how to grill a steak. Look, the YouTube algorithm knows you're interested in piano, but it doesn't know your unique goals. Another question to ask yourself, are you aiming to go pro or are you playing for fun? If you want to go pro, don't fall for the master piano in weeks gimmicks. Getting to that level takes a lot of time and discipline. But if your goal is to have fun, relax, and maybe impress friends and family, don't let strict drill sergeant teachers have you thinking it's not within your reach. It absolutely is. Here's the key. Get clear on your goals and pick lessons that align with them. I always recommend investing in a structured course that provides a step-by-step roadmap. That way you don't waste your time hopping between unrelated YouTube lessons. If your goal is to play chord-based piano and do covers of your favorite pop and rock songs, my course Piano Chord Breakthroughs could be a perfect fit. If you're leaning towards jazz or classical, there are amazing teachers and courses that specialize in those areas too. Whatever your path, take the time to map it out. That clarity will make your journey so much more effective and enjoyable. The 6th mistake I see all the time with self-taught players is playing with bad technique and ignoring body mechanics. This is a big one, and trust me, I learned it the hard way. When I was 20, my band was hired to be the onstage musicians for a production of Hair. Suddenly, I was playing way more than ever before. Weeks of rehearsals, daily performances, sometimes 2 shows a day. I was aggressively playing rock piano for hours a day, and as a mostly self-taught player, I had bad posture and had tons of tension in my forearms. By the final days of the run, my right forearm started to seize up. But instead of resting, I pushed through the pain, and that's how I ended up with a repetitive strain injury. Long story short, I couldn't play piano for a year. I couldn't even write or type, and I had to take time off school just to heal. I woke up every morning with a sinking feeling, wondering if I'd ever be able to play again. It was devastating. I wouldn't wish that experience on anyone. It took lots of physical therapy and relearning proper technique with a private instructor to get back to playing. The bottom line is, playing piano shouldn't be painful. If it is, take a step back, shorten your practice sessions, and focus on improving your posture and technique. There are great resources out there that can help. My first lesson video covers the basics. But no matter what, treat your body with care. It's your most important instrument, and with good technique, you'll be able to play piano for years to come. The final mistake I see self-taught pianists making is not letting themselves enjoy the process. At its core, this is a mistake about getting in your own way, procrastinating, resisting sitting down at the keys, and killing your momentum as a result. One common way this happens is thinking practice sessions need to be all about scales, exercises, and serious work. Now, there's value in those, but if your practice feels dry and joyless, you're going to lose motivation fast. Here's the thing, it's okay to mess around with fun songs you're excited about. In fact, giving yourself permission to play just for the fun of it creates a spark, a sense of joy that makes you naturally want to come back to the piano more often. A lot of people who follow my channel and courses just want to play for their own enjoyment. Maybe you want to impress your family or have a moment in the spotlight at an open mic night. That's awesome, but despite having these casual goals, so many people still hold on to this outdated belief that the only way to become a piano player is to practice for hours a day, grinding it out. I think that notion just hangs around because of traditional ideas about piano pushed by teachers who thought the only legitimate goal was to become a virtuoso concert pianist. What happens when you feel like practice has to be long and grueling? Avoidance. You put it off because it feels like a chore. But here's the truth. Short, fun sessions, just 20 minutes a few times a week, can add up to incredible progress. And when you enjoy those practice sessions, you'll naturally stick with it. So my advice, play regularly, even for smaller amounts of time. Cut down on the guilt and negative self-talk and focus on creating a positive mindset. You'll play more, improve more, and best of all, actually enjoy the journey. Speaking of negative self-talk, one of the biggest mindset traps I see is when people tell themselves, I'm too old to learn piano. If this is you, let me stop you right there. I've seen countless people in their 60s, 70s, and even 80s go from total beginners to confidently wowing their friends or jamming with their grandkids. Sure, you might not have the dexterity or brain plasticity of a 10-year-old, but you do have other advantages. With a lifetime of learning under your belt, you can actually absorb concepts much faster. When I transitioned from teaching kids to teaching adults, I was blown away by how quickly adults can make progress when they stick with it. Of course, adults face different challenges. Life gets busy and you don't have a parent standing over you making you practice, but when you do stick with it, the results can be incredible. And again, the best way to stick with it is to make sure you're having fun. Another way people block their enjoyment is constantly tackling songs that are just beyond their current skill level. To give arbitrary numbers, let's say your general playing ability is a 5. If you're most people, you're constantly trying to learn songs that are a 6. Now, challenging yourself is important. That's how you grow. But don't forget to also spend time playing songs that are a 5, or a 4, or even a 3. Why? Because when you're not in survival mode, you can relax and focus on the subtle, expressive aspects of music. Things like dynamics and just really getting into the flow of playing. When you're white-knuckling it through a tricky song, just trying to hit the right notes, you miss out on that magical experience of truly connecting with the music. It's just so much fun to play something really well, regardless of how hard it is. So here's the bottom line. If you're having fun, you'll naturally play more. That means you'll make more progress. We like progress, but also you'll just enjoy yourself more. Isn't that what it's all about? Thank you so much for watching. I hope these tips help you avoid some of the common pitfalls that can slow down your piano journey. Now I want to hear from you. Did any of these 7 mistakes resonate with you? Or are there other challenges you've run into as a self-taught player? Let me know in the comments. And if you found this video helpful, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share it with anyone else who might need a little piano inspiration. Happy practicing, and I will see you in the next video.